Welcome to Everyday Musicality, the podcast in which we discuss all things related to Gordon's music learning theory and how it can help unlock the inner musician that lives inside of all of us. I'm your host, Heather Shouldice, music educator and faculty member for the Gordon Institute for Music Learning. In this episode, we'll continue our series on the core tenets of music learning theory with today's question, what is music aptitude? Hello and welcome to the Everyday Musicality podcast. I'm Heather Shouldice, and I'm excited to continue digging into the meat of MLT in this first series of episodes. Before we do, I'd like to share that this podcast is sponsored by GIA Publications, publisher of many MLT-related materials, including my upcoming book tentatively titled Weaving It All Together, A Practical Guide to Applying Gordon's Music Learning Theory in the Elementary General Music Program. Subscribe and keep listening to this podcast for a chance to enter upcoming giveaways and hear reviews of MLT-related materials, starting with our first giveaway, which I will tell you about at the end of this episode. The purpose of this first series of episodes is to give an overview of the core tenets that are at the heart of MLT. In the last episode, we discussed the first tenet, audiation, which is the ultimate goal of music learning theory. So if you haven't listened to that episode, I suggest giving that one a listen, especially if you're new to MLT. The core tenet of MLT that we will explore in this episode is music aptitude. What is it? Who has it? And why does it even matter? The first thing to know in understanding music aptitude is to know what music aptitude is not. A phrase you might hear in MLT-related conversations is, we learn what something is by learning what it's not. In other words, we learn through making comparisons. So what is music aptitude not? Music aptitude is not music achievement. Music achievement is what we typically think of when we think of musical ability. Music achievement is what a person knows and can do musically at a given point in time. So if I listen to how accurately you sing in tune, that's looking at your music achievement. If I assess your ability to play an instrument, or to improvise, or to read music notation, I'm assessing music achievement. If I test you on your ability to label musical forms, or describe a certain musical style, or identify various instruments, I'm measuring some part of your music achievement. Music achievement encompasses all the knowledge and skills a person has developed up to a certain point in time. So we can see or hear music achievement because music achievement is what we have learned musically. In contrast, music aptitude is one's potential to learn music. Music aptitude pertains to what we're capable of learning in the future. Therefore, because music aptitude is only potential, we can't directly observe it. We can't see or hear music aptitude. That is the most basic thing to appreciate about the idea of music aptitude, that it's different from music achievement. We can't and shouldn't make judgments about a student's musical future based on their current achievement, because with music aptitude, there may be much more than currently meets the eye or the ear. I want to make this point first because many people, music teachers included, judge individuals based on their current music achievement. And unfortunately, that judgment is often that they're not musical or they're not a singer or music's just not for them. That brings us to our second question. Who has music aptitude? Who has musical potential? The answer to that is everyone. Unlike the traditional myth of musical ability as an inborn talent that some persons possess and others don't, music aptitude is present in every human being. In the words of Ed Gordon, just as no person is void of at least some intelligence, no person is void of at least some music aptitude. To that extent, everyone is musical. That quote is from page 44 of the 2012 edition of Learning Sequences in Music. This idea that every human being has music aptitude is also supported by findings of a large number of ethnomusicological studies, where ethnomusicologists have studied cultures in which there is no concept of innate or inborn musical talent that some people have and some people don't. In these cultures, they just believe that every person has the capacity to become musically competent. And guess what? Virtually everyone does. Gordon theorized that music aptitude is normally distributed among the population. A normal distribution follows that bell-shaped curve. So with any characteristic or data that follows a normal distribution, approximately 60% of any group of people or any collection of data will be average or slightly above or below average. Then approximately 20% will be high, and approximately 20% will be low. So according to Gordon's theory that music aptitude is normally distributed, in any given group of people, approximately 60% of them will have average music aptitude, or slightly above or below average, 20% will have low music aptitude, and 20% will have high music aptitude. Now, this doesn't mean that only the top 20% will go on to have careers in music. In his research developing music aptitude tests, which we'll talk about in a future episode, Gordon found that this normal distribution in music aptitude holds true even among professional musicians and music educators. I'm going to say that again. Gordon's research has found that even among professional musicians and music educators, music aptitude is normally distributed. When Dr. Gordon was alive, he taught summer courses on MLT for music educators through the Gordon Institute for Music Learning, which I had the opportunity to co-teach with him several times in my role as a faculty member for GIML. In these courses, Dr. Gordon loved to give the music teachers who were participating one of his music aptitude tests to show that the normal distribution held true. He would give the test and have each of the participants write a code name instead of their real name, something like Harry Potter or 8675309, something where only that person would recognize their code name and thus their score, so that he could give out the total distribution of scores to the whole class. So Dr. Gordon would score these music aptitude tests that the teachers took, and then he would give everyone a printout of all the total scores along with everyone's code names, so they would know their own score. Now, Dr. Gordon thought this was great because it always showed a normal distribution, which of course reflected well on his theory of music aptitude and his test. But typically, the teachers who had scored in the bottom 20% were devastated. They would be in tears saying, "What have I done with my life? Clearly I'm a terrible musician. I have no business being in the field of music." But that's because they were misunderstanding and equating music aptitude with talent or ability. Music aptitude is not so much a matter of what you will achieve or whether you will go on to a career in music. Music aptitude is more a matter of how much time, effort, guidance, and encouragement a person will need to achieve. We'll come back to this idea near the end of this episode. So getting back to the idea of aptitude being normally distributed, in addition to that, music aptitude is also multidimensional. We don't just have a single holistic music aptitude, but various levels of aptitude in each of the specific dimensions of music. In fact, Gordon found evidence of more than 20 different music aptitudes. In his 1999 article published in the Music Educators Journal entitled All About Audiation and Music Aptitudes, Gordon wrote, "Each person has different degrees of various music aptitudes, and it is rare for a student to have the same level for several dimensions of music aptitudes. In other words, we each have unique musical strengths and unique musical challenges. There are areas in which our aptitude is higher and in which it will be easier for us to achieve, and there are other areas in which our aptitude is lower, and thus we will have to work harder to achieve, or have a skilled teacher who can help us achieve." According to Gordon's theory, music aptitude is not believed to be hereditary, meaning it is not passed down genetically from parent to child. Gordon and a number of other researchers have found no evidence that music aptitude is inherited directly For example, in a study published in 2005, researcher Susan Guarini compared the aptitude test scores of parents with those of their biological children who were in elementary school. And she found no correlation between the two sets of scores. For example, a parent with low music aptitude was no more likely to have a child with low music aptitude than they were to have a child with average or high music aptitude. So this incorrect assumption that musical ability is hereditary may be due to the common occurrence that parents who seem more musical often have children who also seem more musical. However, this is not necessarily due to direct inheritance. It's probable that parents who are more musically skilled and passionate about music are likely to provide positive musical experiences for their children, leading them to become more musically skilled and passionate as well. This importance of a high-quality musical environment is a key aspect of Gordon's theory of the two stages of music aptitude. According to this part of his theory, we are born with music aptitude that is developmental. It's called developmental music aptitude because it can fluctuate throughout childhood depending on the quality of the musical environment. We're each born with a certain level of music aptitude, but in order for our aptitude to stay at that level, we must have appropriate musical stimulation. According to Gordon, regardless of the level of music aptitude with which children are born, they must have early formal and informal experiences in music in order to maintain that level of potential. Again, that's from page 44 of Gordon's 1999 article in the Music Educator's Journal entitled All About Audiation and Music Aptitudes. I'll put the citation in the show notes. The tendency for developmental music aptitude to fluctuate depending on environmental experiences is due to the rapid and powerful brain development that occurs early in our lives, which we'll be discussing in future episodes. Dr. Gordon explains on page 9 of his book, Introduction to Research in the Psychology of Music. Unless cells are used to make neurological connections and synapses related to each of the senses at the appropriate times, the cells will atrophy or direct themselves to enhancing other senses, and the sense that is neglected will be limited throughout life. So in order for a child's music aptitude to stay as high as possible, it needs to be nurtured in a rich musical environment so that those musical parts of the brain can stay stimulated and devoted to music learning. Though birth through 5 years of age is the most crucial due to critical periods of brain development during this time, Gordon theorized that developmental aptitude continues to fluctuate through approximately age 9 or even later, which makes the elementary school years an especially powerful time for helping to maximize our students' musical potential. According to Gordon's theory, once we reach the stabilized music aptitude phase, our music aptitude will stay fairly constant for the rest of our life. However, that does not mean we can't learn music and increase our musical abilities past the age of 9. We can always increase our music achievement at any age, but the amount of time, effort, and guidance it will take for us to do so will likely be affected by the level at which our aptitude has stabilized. So, why does music aptitude matter? First, it acknowledges that everyone has musical potential that can be turned into music achievement. Everyone has at least some amount of music aptitude, so every human being can learn to understand and make music just like every person can learn to understand and speak their native language. Second, as I've already alluded to, music aptitude matters because what we see and hear is not always an accurate indicator of what is possible for a student. This is because unless they have rich and developmentally appropriate musical experiences that challenge and motivate them, students may not be making the most of their potential. Gordon often suggested that a large percentage of students with high music aptitude do not participate in school music, typically because their teachers don't know they have high aptitude and therefore don't know to encourage them. Although many students who show high music achievement also have fairly high music aptitude, we can't assume the reverse. We shouldn't assume that a student who has shown low music achievement in the past also has low music aptitude. It's possible that that student has high music aptitude that just hasn't yet been manifested in their music achievement. We can't infer a person's musical potential on the basis of their observable music achievement. Finally, another reason music aptitude matters is that knowing our students' music aptitudes can help us individualize instruction so that every student can experience success in our music classes. We can do this by adapting the difficulty level of content to meet each student's unique musical strengths and weaknesses. All too often, music teachers tend to teach to the middle and treat all students as if they have the same music aptitude. This often results in high aptitude students growing bored and low aptitude students becoming frustrated, and both of those problems often result in behavior challenges and students quitting music once it becomes optional. If, however, we can tailor the difficulty level of the content we are teaching to meet the individual needs of each student based on their music aptitude, we will help them all to be appropriately challenged and to experience musical growth and success. So, music aptitude may very well be one of the keys to reaching all learners in our music classes. I hope this episode has been a helpful introduction to the concept of music aptitude. This definitely won't be the last time we talk about it on this podcast. In fact, I'm planning a series of future episodes all about music aptitude, including digging deeper into developmental versus stabilized aptitude, an overview of the various music aptitude tests Dr. Gordon has published, and how to use aptitude test results to help differentiate music instruction for our students. As a part of that series, I'm planning to have a giveaway of one of Dr. Gordon's published aptitude tests valued at $100, so stay tuned for that series. Speaking of giveaways, before I end this episode, I want to remind you about our first giveaway from sponsor GIA Publications. They've recently come out with a brand new book by Dr. Jill Reese called Navigating Music Learning Theory, a Guide for General Music Teachers. If you would like to win a free copy of this fantastic resource, you can enter our contest by posting a picture on social media with a description of why you love teaching with MLT with the hashtags Everyday Musicality Podcast and GIA Publications. Stay tuned for the next episode of this series, What is MLT?, in which we'll look at the third core tenet of MLT, sequential music learning. In the meantime, if you have questions, comments, or suggestions for future episodes, please get in touch. You can email me or send me a voice memo at everydaymusicality@gmail.com. I would love to hear from you. Thanks for listening, and let's keep musicking every day.